Good afternoon, ladies and menfolk. Welcome to Word Ninjas Live, episode 48. You're joining us this week for another author interview. This time we have none other than Michael Koep, author of Invasion of Heaven, or Part 1, The New Earth Mythology, The Invasion of Heaven. A very nice, dramatic title.
Very dramatic.
And
Thank you for having me.
glad you could make it. And also with us is our regular crew members, Justin
I'm also here.
and Will.
Hello.
And Calvin, as is per usual, is being fashionably late while he deals with technical shenanigans, but he will join us shortly. But as always, we get the ball rolling at a fashionable time of 3:05 or later. But we're going to kick things off with the author interview. Let's see. I actually have to bring up the questions so I can ask them. And in the show notes on our website, we have links to his website, the book on Amazon, and the Facebook page. So go check that out on this episode's show notes post. And all the questions that we're asking are there as well, but the answers are only in the show, so you'll have to listen. And kicking things off is the first question of just what is your book Invasion of Heaven all about, and how did the idea for it come about?
The Invasion of Heaven is the story of a psychologist and a painter, and the painter has a supernatural element to his work that makes it dangerous for audiences to look upon the work, dangerous to the point of death. So it's this dialogue between a psychologist and painter to determine, what does it mean to be an artist and not have an audience. It takes place in North Idaho. In the United States, goes from North Idaho down through southern Idaho over to Italy and back, and it's filled with a little bit of international intrigue, a little bit of mafia, loud rock and roll. There's a sword fight. There's all kinds of great stuff going on inside of it. So, and where did the idea come from? Was that the question?
Yeah, like what instigated the overall plot?
Well, there were a number of things, of course. I think, all authors have all these different inspirations, but I think probably the very first one for me was my mother has spent her entire life battling depression. And as I was growing up and watching her kind of go through this, terrible disease, things that, start crying and just very emotional, and you're not, as a kid, you're not really able to figure out where all that comes from. Why are you feeling this way? I think I somehow thought the way I could help her the best was, come up with stories, and certainly maybe grab onto a psychologist and sort of turn him into a superhero in some ways, So by taking this psychologist and putting him into this role of looking for an answer to some of the darker parts of the human condition was one of the very first story elements. Is everybody still there?
No, it's good. I keep forgetting that I muted myself as well.
No worries.
Out of curiosity, where did the image of the eye come from? Because putting the book up to the screen, all you see on the book on the front cover is the eye.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what got Calvin and I, or at least myself, interested at your table at Book Expo initially. Like, that looks interesting. What is it about?
Sure. Well, I mean, the eye is certainly an image that I guess has certainly been overused, right? It's you have your third eye, you have the eye of Ra, the all-seeing eye, and I was a little nervous grabbing onto that particular symbol and trying to massage it again to see if I could make it see, as it were. And part of grabbing that image of the all-seeing eye or the Godhead or something beyond seeing into our world. I thought that would be the proper way to proper thing to put on the cover. Was that particular eye, the eye that that Locke falls into at the very beginning of the story. Oddly enough, though, the eye didn't show up until pretty much in the last year of writing. It really started to take on a much more prominent role in the story.
Cool. Out of curiosity, how smooth was the entire process from I have this story idea all the way to Invasion of Heaven is published?
The situation that happens with Basil at the beginning of the book in Florence, and I came up with his character in about 1998, I think, and sat down and wrote that whole piece of him at the Uffizi, and then he died the same day. So the rest of the time between then and now was trying to discover why he took his, or why that particular incident happened to him. But a lot of years, a lot of different drafts. I must have rewritten this story from top to bottom at least 8 times, and probably 2 more full drafts in the last 2 years before the release of the book. So, but in terms of smoothness, I think it went. I had all the time in the world to work on it. I wasn't working on a deadline. Things have changed quite a bit now since the book's been out that I'm writing on a deadline. So I'm finding that there's a lot more pressure than there was when I needed to make large decisions about plot. And that could take a month or 2, to let those things flesh themselves out easily and naturally, seemingly. So.
And for the listeners, that little spoiler of Basil's death isn't really that much of a spoiler because it happens very early on. It's more the reasons behind it that are incredibly spoilery. So don't get too surprised by that little one-off comment. There's a lot more to that point.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Charles, because I kind of stopped myself. Are we going to do spoilers yet right now? I'm not sure.
I thought we'd do just the main questions first and then the spoilers afterwards.
Sure, no problem.
What I liked about your response is it gives me solace knowing that, sometimes writing as a craft, can take a long time, going through different revisions. Before, I've always written as more of like a hobby and never actually taken it seriously myself. I never really had something to really write about until very recently. I've come up with a story idea that really hits true to me, and I really want to give it justice. And after like a year of working on it, I'm not happy with it at all. And after doing National Novel Writing Month so often, you get into the habit of, I have to write this entire novel in a month, and then what? Another month later, and then I have to publish it. It's good to hear that. Most authors don't typically write their story in a single month and then try to publish it a month after.
No kidding. I since this whole process began with getting the book out, I've been, meeting so many new authors and established authors and learning their craft and the way they do it. And I'm amazed at the way some of these people can sit down and just crank out work. And are required to by their publishing contracts to get this work out in a certain amount of time. And I really admire the ability to do that. I think I work a little differently. I'm getting better at the sort of deadline where I give myself my own particular deadlines. But it's a powerful thing, and I write every day. So I mean that's really the big thing. Is you need to keep writing, keep working, keep putting pages together, and try to average a certain amount of words a day. And sometimes it's just junk that I'll put down on paper and I'll throw it away. But every once in a while the kernel will come out that seems like I can grow it, make it something that might fit into the story later on. But Yeah, it's strange. It's just it's the habit. I think is the most important thing to develop. At least it was for me. Was to just make sure that I'm working every day at it and just writing. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Just write.
Yeah, that's something that our group has constantly reminded ourselves and others about. You can't really be much of a writer if you don't write. Even if it's just occasionally or whenever you can, you gotta write.
Yeah, you gotta sit behind the keyboard and just keep plowing at it. I have I've got basically two books working right now. I'm working with the follow-up to the Invasion of Heaven, but I've also started another piece which is not necessarily autobiographical, but it deals with a musician, a writer, a father, a swordsman, which I kind of do all of those things, and there's a lot of strange little adventures that happen in between. So some of the concert touring, and there's some wonderful little stories, and some of the people that you meet from time to time that when I find that I need to get away from the New Earth mythology, I'll be writing these into that piece, and that's growing pretty steadily. So I'm kind of excited to be getting that out in the next year or so.
Very cool. I look forward to reading both of those. Let's see. The next question would be, what were the memorable milestones along the way from story idea to publication? Like your first finished draft, or were there some surprise revisions or alterations along the way?
Yeah, there were a lot of changes as the story progressed. I like that. I like this question, milestones along the way. Um, when I finished the first draft, and uh, I remember having a video camera, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I put the period at the end of the sentence, and I stared at it for a minute and thought, is there more to write here? Am I done with this? And I sat back and folded my arms and sort of scowled at the screen and thought, well, I think I'm going to print it out. I'm going to actually have it on paper. So I printed it, and I took the video camera and videotaped the printer printing. I know that sounds really silly, but I did. And these pages are falling out of the printer, and I was just delighted. But that was a big moment. You know, one really wonderful thing that may not be along the way, but I did a lot of traveling in Italy, and there's a couple of scenes that take place in Florence, Italy. A gal that I have met since the book has been published picked the book up, and she read the book in Florence, and sent me this email and a whole bunch of experiences that had happened, and she sent me pictures of the Uffizi and her standing in front of the Uffizi while she was reading the book, and that was really a wonderful, wonderful feeling, just a single person reading the book in one of the locations. But yeah, there were so many. I mean, like I say, the book 1998, there were so many things that have happened in between there that have contributed to the story. So many wonderful things. Just just being able to sit around and talk with people about the book is a lot of fun too. So they're all kind of milestones. I love milestones.
Nice. And something we like to ask all of our interviewees, what advice to fellow writers in regards to writing or the submission process or just getting published would you give them? Because every author and writer out there seems to have their own spin on the whole process, so it's always interesting to get their perspective on it.
Sure. I think so much of writing. I think the main thing to keep in mind, when we're writing is, oh, it's fantastic. Yes, it is. I think the main thing to keep in mind for some of this, it was funny. A guy just walked up and asked me how the food was in this restaurant. It was great. I think our job as writers is to really, entertain people and make sure that, we're moving them. I mean, that's why we were given, that particular craft. the ability to put words on paper, to suspend their disbelief and take them on a journey and all of that. And so much of that character, I think, gets lost in the submission process. It gets lost in we work so hard to connect, and when we don't, it gets very frustrating. And it's a strange thing. For me, I just worked really hard in trying to connect with people that liked the story, and when that happened, they helped me move it forward. And just those connections, those human connections, and sharing writing and sharing art, I think is probably one of the best submission things that you can do. Submit it to everybody, whether or not they're a publisher or not. Sort of like the old music thing that musicians do, is they go out and they create their following by just sharing their art with them. Writing groups. This particular group that you have here is so cool. I mean, you're sharing stories with people. We're the storytellers, and you're making sure that never goes away. And this is probably one of the best submission things that you can do. And I also find, and I don't know what you guys think, but so much of the industry has changed. And of course, I'm coming in and I'm still learning so much. I mean, every day I'm learning things. But you have your major publishing companies, and then this huge trend of self-publishing that has changed the entire landscape. And it's so difficult to kind of know where to fall into it, depending upon what you want to accomplish. I mean, do you guys find that your published authors and your self-published authors, do they have big differences in stories in terms of submission guidelines and things like
that? In regards to submission guidelines, I would say there is a difference, because like the traditional publishers and even the smaller imprints that do the publishing, they have their set guidelines of this is the level of quality that we want out of the stories. Most of the imprints, like, this is the genre or the style that we want, because that's what we focus on. But if you're self-publishing, all bets are off. There are no real rules or guidelines beyond this is how much it costs for you to submit this to a self-publishing thing to get it printed or get it posted on Amazon, stuff like that. So there's not as much regulation in the do-it-yourself side of it quite yet, which is good and bad.
Certainly. Well, there's always that quality thing, and that's what we find. I forget what the statistic is, but it's some crazy thing like 60,000 new titles a year, and trying to find your way to connect with people with that much, that many books out is just crazy. It's an absolutely crazy thing. So then it just comes right back to trying to play your particular song anywhere you can play it, and hoping that somebody listens, But yeah, I don't know what advice I would give for as new as I am at all of this. And my particular successes have been really about connecting with people and just sharing the story. And just being very genuine in your writing, and write all the time. Just write. That's the most important thing. Because once you have a cup that's really full of writing, it's just going to start to spill out over into everything else. And you're going to force people to read it at that point, right?
And I think that writing is not the only medium where the small, intimate groups of people that you connect with on a more personal level outweighs the larger general audience that you may have connected to in the past, where you're a famous author 10 years ago and everyone knows your name, but maybe like 1 out of 20,000 of those people actually buys and reads a book. But now you've got this intimacy where you can really connect with your audience and really connect with your readers, and that makes extremely rabid fans. Not just including purchasing, but just emotional content and connection. I think is something that's been really growing, not just in the literary medium, but in a lot of artistic medium.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's nothing better than, again, sorry for the musical reference, but you have that particular band you love, and nobody else knows about it. It's that one group that nobody else knows about, that sort of cultish thing that happens. And I think that happens with books, and it happens with all kinds of art, obviously. But Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just that emotional connection that can happen, be the sort of soundtrack to your life, or at least the story that's moving you at the time.
I think that's just kind of nature of the aspects of creativity in itself. Like, just anything that you do that connects with people. That that's that's basically that's basically the gist of it. Like, you make something that connects with people, and that's just a little seed that begins the avalanche of like your fan base. Did that make any sense at all?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and that's why I think I fell so much into mythologies. These are stories that we all know these stories. We see them over and over again. And I've just been so blown away by how you can tell the same story over and over and still give it life. These chosen one stories, for example, or the Christ story, or all of these stories that get told over and over. They resonate with us for some reason. And I just, like you say, you reach out, you connect, you tell them a story that they kind of understand, you put a twist on it that makes them look inward, and you've got it, hopefully. It's not always that simple, of course, but, those are the things that we attempt to do, that little magic trick. And, I don't know, what a wonderful thing it is, right?
I agree. I think the thing that like resonates with us about mythology and like the hero protagonist story is that it could be anybody at all. Like one of us could be the chosen one at any of anything, and like we all would have to like sit and think, if I were in this situation, how would I be able to handle this, or would I even be able to handle this?
I feel like CJ
So
would more likely be the villain of the story.
Spoilers.
the one that nobody would expect, except they kind of would.
Well, and I think the other really fascinating thing for me about mythologies is, and certainly storytelling overall, is that the way stories and powerful myths can change the way we behave on a day-to-day basis. And it's easy enough just to look around at some of the myths that still exist now, or myths, or religious stories that we will hear these tales and we will believe them to the point of changing how we respond to other people, how countries deal with one another, because of their stories, because of these ancient ideas about the afterlife, what comes after, moral codes, all of those things built into stories about individuals in situations that are extreme, and with a little bit of supernatural weirdness attached to it. And certainly in the Invasion of Heaven, the two of the main characters are reading a book throughout and reading a story, and it's changing their view of reality. And so it's uh, kind of that same thing, just storytelling.
Yeah, it's been interesting reading the story within the story about the story and seeing how each one affects each other.
I
Uh,
certainly love Locke's voice from time to time, where he talks about what a crappy writer he is. I think that's probably me talking to myself. Probably, I don't know.
It's just a little voice in all of our heads that tell us you suck. We all understand. That's something we could definitely relate to.
Now, changing gears slightly, something that you had brought up earlier, you've been working on this for quite some time. Uh, and I was wondering, when did you know to stop? Did you have a draft at one point where you considered, okay, this is the final draft, I'm ready to publish? And then do you even consider now, oh, I could probably go back and rewrite something or add a little something here and there? You know, I think it's sort of the artist's folly to figure out where to actually stop, and I wonder if you have any advice on that.
Well, something that took me a long, long time to get my head around as a musician. Sorry to go back there, but I have a lot of experience in the recording studio and records and things like that, and writing songs. That when I cut my teeth essentially on progressive rock music, so very technical, very finely crafted music, but in the rock genre. And rock and roll music, in essence, is supposed to be very quick and very fast, and you're supposed to capture a feeling. You know, for example, I love the story of Sting writing that song Roxanne, which I'm sure you guys have heard. He wrote it in his living room in like 15 minutes, and it changed the world, you know, this song. A massive, massive hit, but he wrote it in 15 minutes. He took it into the recording studio with the police, and they did labor over every single little note. They got in, they got the right energy, and they recorded it, played it, and it was done. So I think there's a certain energy that you have to capture. I think that would probably translate to writing, is that you've got to capture that feeling when you're moving, you know, instead of trying to really build so many at the cemetery, and certainly knew when I put the period at the end of the sentence that that was it. I just knew that, and the rest had to wait for part two. Um, but you know, for me, it was very simple, and I think it's, you know, also, you know, talking with others about your writing too. You know, I have a couple of editors that have just been so absolutely incredible for me in growing as a writer, and you know, not afraid to reach up and hit me upside the head and say, what are you doing here? This isn't, you know, this is creating static. You're not communicating with me, so take another look at it. And I love that, because, you know, it will eventually make the story that much better. So, you know, I don't know, somewhere in between trying not to overwork and trying to keep the original spark of it, and then still being able to share it and know where it can improve. And then another good friend of mine who's a writer told me that, you know, I think you have to trust your own voice, he says. You just got to be able to trust your own inner feeling on what you're putting down, and be able to say, I think I'm done. I think this feels really good to me, and being able to trust that. And I'm still learning to do that. I still feel a little scared sometimes that it's not quite where it needs to be, and I think that's where I really lean on my editor. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're uh, we ourselves are our worst critic, and so if we can please ourselves, then that's probably good enough for the rest of the world.
Yeah, we that's certainly something we hope. I remember when I was in college, I graduated from Gonzaga University in Washington State, and I went to school when I was doing a lot of international touring, playing music, and I really wanted to go to school to become a better lyricist or a poet, and did a lot of poetry during that time. But I was working on a record at that time where all of the lyrics were sonnets, the classic, 14-line sonnet. And one of my professors was very kind in being kind of an editor for me while I was working on these sonnets. And so one of the first times that I went in to submit 2 or 3 that I had just had on the anvil and just really worked very, very hard on it, felt very strong about, put them out on his desk, and he read them, and he spent the next 45 minutes telling me how terrible they were, and absolutely just crushing my spirit. And it really hurt, but it was one of the best things he could have done, because they were crappy. They were so crappy. Now, 2 and 3 and 4 times later, after working them, more ideas were fleshed out. I had to dig deeper. I had to learn more about what I could do and what I couldn't do. But the best part about it is that I really, by the time that he was going, I'm really liking this, I had learned more about myself and what I was actually trying to say inside the subject matter. I had really had to explore things, and you know, I think writing's different from everything in that regard. Is that you have to go in further than anything else. You have to spend more time inside the words and focusing on what you're saying and making sure that you're saying it properly. Yeah, crazy. And I also remember going in. The third time I went in, I took my fencing helmet with me and kept it in my bag, and I put the poems on his desk. And as he was looking, I just picked up my helmet and put my helmet on, thinking that would be, some sort of symbolic safety place, so that I didn't have my spirit completely pummeled. Turned into kind of a funny joke after a while.
Nice.
By the way, the fencing helmet doesn't save you.
At least.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I've learned about my own writing is that the idea can come very easily in my head, and most of the time I can even picture it up there. But then transferring it onto the page in such a way that other people can understand what I'm visualizing, that's where the art of writing really comes to bear. And it's not going to happen in the first draft, or the second, or the third. It's going to take a while. And it helps to have the outside editor to kind of bounce back and forth with, like, am I conveying this properly, or am I missing the mark somewhere?
I always feel like I could have been born into a cinematographer's brain instead of an author's brain, because I have often very specific visual identities to my scenes. And when you're writing horror and you're writing really dark scenes, you've got a lot of the emotional weight behind it, but sometimes you've got these really specific, I know how the light is casting down, I know how the scene's lit. I feel like I could actually go into like a basement room and lay out everything exactly as I have in my brain. But then if I go bring it to the paper, it's very hard to bring across, quick movements versus slow movements. You can only use the word suddenly so many times, and I feel like at a certain point I would probably be a better graphic novel artist than an actual writer, except I don't draw nearly as well as I could write.
Yeah, I love cinematography in novels. I've always loved Charles Dickens in that regard. The way he'll just put a picture in front of you, and everything in that picture seems to work like a film. There's nothing there that's not supposed to be there.
Still something I myself am working on in this novel, is trying to figure out how much do I want to spell out to the reader and how much do I want to leave to their imagination. When you're dealing with horror genre, there's a point where you can describe so much that it no longer becomes scary, it actually becomes comical to a certain point. And leaving things behind the scenes slightly, the reader is going to come up with something way sicker than you could have ever imagined anyways and written down on paper.
Absolutely. I'm sure you guys have read The Lord of the Rings, right? I mean, what's scarier is that you never see Sauron. You never see the Dark Lord. He's always talked about in this utter fear. You never see him, and that always just scared the hell out of me growing up reading that story. I just thought, what the hell is Sauron? And you never really know. It's fantastic. It's unfortunate that the movies turned it into an eye on top of a tower. It had to be something for a film, right? Otherwise, it's sort of suicide in some ways theatrically. But yeah, what you don't see can always be much scarier, for sure.
Yeah, whatever is in the shadows always tends to be more dangerous than whatever is out of the shadows invisible.
Just went backpacking up in northern New Hampshire, and we ended up hiking a trail for, I don't know, a couple miles with 50 pounds of gear, and then we go take the trail and take a hard west and just keep walking out into the woods, and we set up camp, and we're both a little out of shape, so we're completely exhausted. We we go to bed at like 5 p.m. or so. You know, we're just totally wiped. We figure we'll wake up in the morning, have some breakfast or whatever. 10 o'clock rolls around, and all you hear is rustling in the leaves, and you don't know what it is. It could be a bear, although it's unlikely because we're in pretty thick woods on a deep slope. Could be a moose, which could arguably be worse news for us than an actual bear. Or it could be a deer taking steps in the leaves, or it could be a wolf or a fox walking around, or it could be a squirrel jumping around, and you really have no idea. And the last thing you want to do if it's like a bear or a moose is to draw attention to yourself by shining a flashlight at it. So instead, my friend and I, who were in separate tents, were both huddled in the middle of our tents, clutching our weapons in fear for probably an hour while this thing starts doing figure eights around our tents, and we have no
That's
idea what it is.
fantastic.
It starts sniffing around the tent, so we know, okay, it's not a squirrel and it's probably not a bear because a bear's not going to be able to do figure eights around two tents. But it could have been a wolf, but we don't know if it's a wolf, and they usually come in packs maybe, so we're not sure. It ends up being a fox, and we end up scaring it away after a while. But then by that point, we were just so filled with adrenaline and so awake that it was too late, and we just packed up our gear at midnight and walked back down the mountain. We're like, well, we're done here. So yes, things in the shadows are often way scarier than whatever is out in front of you.
Absolutely. Last night I'm actually camping right now with my family, just about I don't know, about a mile away from here, and it's just deep woods, right? Well, last night I step out of our little camper that we've got, and I walk out into the trees, and to use the natural privy that's out there, and it's so dark deep in this forest that I can't see this far in front of my face. I mean, it's that black out, and I step into the trees, and I'm thinking to myself, which was a great story idea I think that I might use sometime, but actually having that bad guy right there, or just this close to your face, and you don't even know that they're there, and of course you're looking around. Okay, I can't see, but it's even more sinister to think that somebody is right there, Oh man, I hear you. We got bears up here too. We got big bears up here, very large bears.
While
I
laying
know
in
where
the
you're at.
tent,
Something going around your tent.
yeah. While laying in the tent, all I could visualize is this big, huge claws coming down, going through my tent, and just basically shredding my leg open. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, where's my belt? If I have to make a tourniquet, okay, my belt's over here. I'll pull this around and wrap it around my leg and pull it tight. I'll roll to the other side of the tent. I'm going through all these scenarios in my mind, which are freaking me out incredibly. And I'm definitely going to use some of this fear and harness it for some of the scenes in the novel that I'm writing, which takes place largely in the woods conveniently. But yes, the mind plays really awful tricks on you when you're
When you don't know what's out there, yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
And this is why I don't go camping. Let's see. Getting back into the questions. The last non-spoilery one was just where can viewers and listeners learn more about Invasion of Heaven and your other works in the process?
Well, right now, you should be able to get the book at any bookstore. You can order it, and they can get it in for you, which preferably, it's great if you could go to a bookstore and order it through a bookstore. You can also get it on Amazon, of course. There's a lot of different online vendors that you can pick it up from. My website is www.michaelb, as in boy, Koep, Koep.com. And I also have a Facebook page. So it's pretty simple to find the book, I think. We're right now working on trying to get ourselves into more of a national position so that the book will be out nationally through a major distributor, and that's something that we're working on right now. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, it's easy enough just to go online and look up information.
And as we mentioned before, all of those links are in the show notes on fcwriters.com. This is purely for the benefit of those listening, either via video or audio. And if you don't happen to have internet access where you are, something that you can write down for future reference. Now, I don't know what sort of timeline you have. Would you like to do the spoilery bits now, or would you like to wait until the end of the show if you can stick around? I don't want to hold you up because I know you still have to drive all the way home today.
We could do it now if you don't mind, since we're just talking. That'd be great. Now, I know you and Calvin have read the book. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
This would be a lot of fun because I had told Charles, I think when we were in New York, that I'd done several interviews, but never have done a spoiler interview before, where we actually get to talk about the book itself and talk about some of the plot points that seemingly took most of the thought for me to try to put together. And it's so difficult to talk about the book without ruining it for someone that hasn't read it. And so I thought it would be really fun to do that with you guys. So I'm all for it. I'm not afraid of it.
Excellent.
All right. I'm pretty sure that Justin is probably going to take his headphones out or walk away or just throw his hands up in disgust.
Yeah, just to be officially clear for the internet, anyone watching, this is your official spoiler alert.
I actually put together a disclaimer. Would you like me to read it?
Please
Yes,
do.
please, before I leave.
All right. The following portion of this podcast contains spoilers for The Invasion of Heaven. Please turn the podcast off now if you're not familiar with or do not want given away any important plot points, plot twists, or juicy details of the book. You have 5 seconds.
Disclaimer.
So, if we're going to finish up after the spoiler thing, CJ, I'm going to be around, so you can just ping me on Skype when you guys are done, and I can come back for the closing, unless you're just going to end the podcast abruptly after the spoilers.
No, we'll still do the other segments afterwards.
Okay, so I'm going to
go up after.
run away, buy the book, and then read it, and then maybe send Michael an email or something later, or listen to the show.
I'd love that very much. It was a pleasure talking with you.
It was a pleasure talking to you as well, and I'm sure we will be in contact again.
I hope so. See you later.
Take care.
Hey, Will, you sticking around?
Yeah.
Yeah? Alright, so we're in the spoilers portion of the podcast, so I can, before we start, I just want to say, at Book Expo America, your agent kind of messed me up with 3 words in summarizing the book. Those 3 words, Helen's a bitch. Reading through this book, that was in the back of my head the entire time until I got to the part where I understood why he said that.
Oh, that's so funny. I get a phone call from him when he reads it. And he got deep into it, and then one afternoon my phone rings and he says, just silence. I go, Andreas, are you there? Silence. Helen's a bitch. I thought, no way, no she's not. No, she's not. She was just brought up in a way that was kind of tough. There's more to it. She's not, one-dimensional. So that was a lot of fun. But she plays a pretty big role in book 2, and we get to kind of go back and find out a little bit about why Helen behaves the way Helen behaves. But that's so funny that was in the back of your head the whole time. So you must have been expecting something kind of terrible was coming around the corner. Oh, that's
Yes.
funny.
And I was not disappointed at all. And I found out.
Yeah,
Well,
during my read through, I kept on finding hints like Helen is not one-dimensional. Something's going on here. This is not going to end up well. And then you find out the twist.
yeah, that little chunk there. Well, in book 2, her and Albion Revistel have just met, and this is in 1972 in Los Angeles, just outside the LA Forum where Led Zeppelin is performing, and that's where they meet for the first time. I won't tell you. I won't spoil that for you because that's kind of a crazy, terrible thing that happens. But it gives you some insight as to why she is who she is. But yeah, why is Helen such a bitch? I don't know. She certainly appears that way. Certainly from the point of view of Locke, who, then come the larger questions. Is Helen, was Helen, did he create her that way? Certainly she wasn't an immortal before he fell. They were probably still very married. There were a lot of little changes that happened in that psychological break that he has. I had someone write me an email just recently and say, well, now wait a second, did Helen know Albion before, Locke falls? And I wrote back and said, well, according to Locke, absolutely not. He made up Albion. He's completely made up, as is Julia. I think, which is a very fun thing for me to be able to say. I think.
That's why I'm excited for part 2 to find out just which parts are actually real and which ones are not as real. Because there's a lot of ways this thing could play out, especially with the final reveals.
Yes. Well, and again, I think we had touched on it too. It's about storytelling. It's about this idea of, will we change our behavior if we're told the right story, and certainly in this case, it was a battle between two psychologists. And for Locke, he knew that he couldn't capture Reardon. He knew he couldn't get him by just, we're going to call the police on you. He had to have Reardon kind of show his lunacy and his madness, and he thought he'd write a story and give it a shot. And it worked. He believed this mythical tale and somehow got very lucky. That's all that Locke had intended. But again, just another play on mythology. It's like, I'm going to tell you this story and see if it literally changes your behavior. The other thing is did it change your behavior as you read it? As you were reading it, my hope was that you're reading along going, wow, this is some crazy stuff. I am believing it. And then when you arrive at the cemetery and Reardon is holding Julia at gunpoint, and Locke and Julia look at each other, and Locke has no idea who she is. Who are you? And Julia is like, hey, wait a second. There's that other level of like, I have no idea what you're doing here. I don't, please don't hurt this woman. So yeah, it's and when we were talking milestones as well, that was a really wonderful milestone for me to arrive at, is when Julia, she's shot, and then she looks down and she sees this sort of white foam. I think I wrote that not even knowing that she was going to be immortal, and just suddenly that happened, and I went, oh wow, that was a fun little moment for me.
Yeah, like those last 3 chapters or so were just a constant, wait, what? In my mind, as one plot point after another kept happening. Like, wait, so it was all just a story to trap this one person, but then wait, now it's this other level, and then wait, she's not dead.
And wait, she's actually immortal. So what's coming true and what isn't coming true, There's the other piece inside that I believe it's Howard that says, it can all be true. Why don't we just eliminate the suspense and just say everything that, mythologically speaking, that we know of, these fantastic stories, let's just say that they can be true. Why not, right? That opened up an enormous amount of storytelling fun, just to be able to say, okay, well, let's not put any limitations. Let's just make it real. And that was something I wanted to do at the very beginning, because I was traveling through the Mediterranean Sea at the time when some of this stuff was happening, and I'm looking at these ancient monuments, dedicated because somebody told a really good tale. And let's build Athena's, let's build some of these things in ancient Greece and in Rome that are just, two stories, essentially, to Greek gods. Just amazing, amazing stuff. Anyway, yeah. When you think about the story in terms of its time, it only takes place in 2 days, and it takes place in a car between Julia and Reardon, and it's a murder mystery in essence. It's just about that. It's about a psychologist's client passing away mysteriously, and that's it. But everything else in between is sort of, twisted up and gives it a kind of a different dimension, certainly.
Yeah, it was definitely one crazy ride.
I started reading this story like having the mindset, actually a mindset that I ended up that I adopted from, interestingly enough, a cinema class back in college. Like, don't believe everything you see/read. But but as I'm going through this book, the way everything is going in real time is as fluid as it's going. I fell right into the trap that you wanted me to fall into.
Went into the center, hopefully.
Yes, precisely. And we get to the climax at the funeral. It's like, oh shit! I fell for it. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did.
So I wasn't alone. I fell for it too.
Well, I'm so thankful that it worked out. That was the job, was to just hopefully, that's why we do this, right? We try to create something that will make people smile and giggle and be able to share with others. And that's another thing. A friend of mine sent me another email after he had read it and said, I can't believe that you were able to even weave in the Cain and Abel story. When you have one brother killing another brother, you're definitely carrying those bags. And taking a psychologist, a very conservative psychologist, whose goal is to try to ease pain, to put what do they say? You're supposed to take your main character and throw the worst possible scenario on him, make him or her do the thing that they would never possibly do, but you got to make it believable. Well, here I am taking a psychologist that wants nothing more than to find the answer and heal the human condition, but instead the only way that he can do that is putting a gun into his own brother's hand and telling him to commit suicide. That, to me, was like, I knew I was going to do that at the beginning, but how am I going to do that? You ask yourself, okay, this is going to be the last thing he would ever do, and I have to make it plausible. That was a trick for me.
It was a very well done trick, because even though you see the effects of the suicide early on, and then you go through the whole story that leads up to that, so you actually learn the significance of why this is so important. I fell for it before realizing, like, wait, he gave him the gun, but we know what happens. Oh my.
Yeah, that's where he got the gun. Yeah.
That was a very impactful scene.
In fact, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you do look at that scene where they're in Basil's studio in Florence, or in Venice, and Locke gives him the gun. As he leaves, there is a piece where it talks about, it goes very biblical right there, where all of the imagery turns into harvesting fields and the vineyards out, because it just kind of leans back into that Cain and Abel thing. I was really trying to make it obvious. I don't think it was that obvious, but I tried to really bring that myth up into it again, and yeah, it's crazy stuff. I was pleased that he grabbed onto that, though, that email from my friend, dude. I just was very pleased. Like, yes, that's what I was going for. Yay. Good for us. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many little things inside that are fun to discuss, for me anyway. And I love to hear how people take certain things. For example, at the end, when there's the discussion with Greenham and Samuel and Corey, where they're trying to determine what the heck has just happened, and Corey says something like, this is crazy. Are you saying that he's just created me? I have my own memories. I have my own past that I can remember. He just created all of us? And Greenham is quick to kind of hold his finger up and say, well, I believe that he may have created you, but I've only been that story. He talks about this person. Other characters knew who William Greenham was. He was just this sort of crazy guy that said he was 600 years old. What Locke did is made it real. Not only that, made him his father, which is even stranger. And I had another person ask me, well, what's going to happen with that? And I said, I don't know yet. I'm going to have to figure it out. But of course, book 2 starts in 1338 with William Greenham as a 6-year-old. And so we get to go back into some historical stuff and find out exactly when he realizes he indeed has the blood of an Eternalia, or an immortal. Yeah, just so many little fun discussion points, which I'm really pleased that I'm able to say I'm not really sure how it's going to work out. We'll see. It's kind of fun. I see one of your questions here, Charles. Whose power is more fantastical, Locke or Basil's?
Yeah, as I was reading through the book, I kept on thinking, like, Basil's ability to create art that reaches into that other realm and transform people if you can pull them out is pretty powerful and very transformative and downright crazy. And then I kept on thinking, well, what's Locke's ability? He puts words down on paper, but they don't seem to be doing anything yet. That's not that impressive. But then we make it all the way to the end, and we see just how far-reaching those words actually are. So I was kind of going back and forth like, well, this one is pretty powerful because it does all of this. But this one's pretty powerful because it does all of that. So I couldn't actually decide which one was more fantastical or impressive. I think it was kind of a tie for me.
In working book 2, I keep coming back to that idea that did Basil exist? Ever? Well, he had to have. Julia knew who he was. Some of these characters in real life saw him. He actually did commit suicide at the Uffizi. But for how long in existence did he really exist? Basil or Locke creates him and kills him. Did Basil's paintings really exist? For Locke, no. But we're finding that they do exist now. They are an actual reality. He brought them into reality. So I don't know. In some ways, I think Basil's is probably more fantastical in that it was created by his brother, and he can't ever do it again. I mean, I don't know that Locke's going to be able to do it again. I don't know that he's going to be able to write again like that, change the fabric of history again. I'm not sure yet.
Considering all that he's
I
done,
think it was.
I don't know if he should.
Yeah, well, that's a big question with Greenham. It says, I think we're going to take your pencil away from you. But yeah, I think at the when he has this near-death experience, it enabled him to kind of see across a threshold that we hear tale of. You'll hear people tell the story. I saw this light. I felt like I felt bliss, and he falls into this eye. He has this mental break and manages to do something extraordinary. Whether or not he's going to be able to do it again, I don't know yet. He's trying. He's trying to do the same thing he had done in book 2. He's trying to do the same thing he had done before. What I did this, how can I do it again? And again, that's just another, way we as writers probably do it every day. It's like, I wrote this great thing yesterday, but why is it shit right now?
Yeah, been there, done that.
Right? Well, that's awesome. A lot of fun.
I think one of the things I enjoyed about the book was like understanding the immortals and how they work, and the fact that even though they're immortal, they can still feel human emotions, but not just feel them like exponentially, because they live forever, and so they have to live forever with these different emotions. And you would think that because they've experienced so much from living so long, you wouldn't have a reaction like Julia's at the end, where she says, "This is really happening, isn't it?" So like that was one thing that I really appreciated throughout the duration of the book, just getting to understand these immortals.
Yeah,
And
I'm fascinated with that idea of imagine what would happen when eventually we will get this, but we'll be able to kind of double our lifespan. You know, when our values are set up in a way that are not limited by age per se. When we go, you know what, I'm going to actually now, because of technology or advances or whatever, some sort of major breakthrough in some of the DNA stuff that we're doing right now, and the mapping the genome and all of this stuff is actually happening real time now. It's just a matter of time before we're living 200 and 300 years. What is that going to do to our perspectives on greed and war and scarcity and the environment? And are we going to grow old thinking, well, maybe we should rethink plastic?
yeah,
Maybe we should rethink fossil fuels, because if this is where I'm going to be living for 200 years, and I'm going to have children that are going to be living maybe 600 years, maybe we should be rethinking how we do treat, not to be just simply talking about the environment here, but it's a good way to kind of look at it. It's like, well, goodness, I think we're gonna change a lot of our values. I think greed and war are going to be very different, treated very differently. Once we figure out how to exist longer, I think it will change everything. And I spend a lot of time. Every day I'm trying to think, how would an immortal feel about, something terrible happening in the news? You said a second ago, Calvin, how they would have a response. Like William Greenham feels like he should, have a response on something emotional isn't emotional to me anymore, because I've been there, I've done that. You're
right.
seeing it wrong. You have the wrong perspective. I've been alive for 500, 600 and so many years. Take it easy. It's not a big deal. I mean, are any of you fathers?
Nope.
No. One thing I notice so often now is I have a little 5-year-old, and he'll get really upset with something, and I realize my years when something that is super upsetting to him is not upsetting to me. But if we multiply this out, with an immortal that's been alive for 600 years and a guy that's 45 years old that's upset about something, fun little things to play with, I think. And mythology is fraught with immortals. There's so many stories of immortals, and I just wanted to play with it again, see if I could do something with it. So, And we get to deal a lot with that in book 2. A lot of emphasis on the immortals and their purpose and what they do and why they do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, that was another facet to this story that I found really interesting while reading. I was trying to figure out what is the invasion of heaven? Why is heaven invading us? And then it slowly kind of reveals like it's more a matter of we're kind of invading their space. We're
Yeah.
kind of messing up their spot, as humans are wont to do with everything. So it was interesting to kind of see, oh, so it's not really so much heaven invading us, we're invading heaven. That can't be good. This isn't going to end well.
Right.
Well, again, telling the stories, like the same stories over and over and over again, it always seems like, you know, the worst thing that can happen is somebody's got the missile and they're going to destroy the world. Let's stop the bad guy. And I just kind of wanted to take it a step further and say, well, okay, the world's one thing. What if we just eliminate any possibility of something after? We eliminate it. Let's take away not the reason to be alive, but the thing that we hope and pine for afterward. None of us want to end. And depending upon what you believe religiously or not, you know, some people just say, hey, we're here and we wink out and that's it. And others say there's something beyond. And I think all of us hope and wish that our something within our spirit can still exist after this mortal coil falls away, right? That's certainly Hamlet's wish, you know, to be or not to be. You know, that's the question. It's the best one. It's the best question of all. Do we be now or later? Is there something out there? Well, let's hope so, because right now none of this makes sense. And so the big, you know, the big, instead of destroying the world, let's destroy something that we all hope exists, was kind of one of the early kernels, to answer your question from earlier, Charles, is that was one of the earlier kernels. It's like, let's make that at stake, a hope as opposed to something in real. So yeah, the invasion of heaven. we're going to take that away. Somehow we've managed to screw that up too.
Like with all things, it was paved with good intentions. I think that was like understanding, like why, understanding why, like what the invasion of heaven was. I think that was also another mind-blowing thing. Like you kind like you, maybe it's just me, but you really don't think about like alternate ways of getting to the afterlife, because there's, you know, the one surefire way, if you believe in the afterlife, which is obviously death, but like Basil putting together, like inadvertently putting together a portal to heaven, and finding out, we stumble upon stumbling upon it and realizing, oh shit, we're messing that up now. Like that was something. Like,
yeah, but he talks about very early on. Yeah, he says, I don't think, you know, he has this weird condition that he begins to stutter if he feels like somebody's going to see his work. But he knows that nobody should look at it. He inherently knows that. And again, that's, I mean, I'm also a painter. I love the idea of artists not wanting to share their work. I know that you guys are all the same way. I mean, sometimes you don't want to look at this. You don't want to look at this. Now, it may not necessarily be, in Basil's case, that his work sucks. No, his is just going to scramble your brain. That's, you know, but I loved playing with that idea. It's like, I don't want you to look at my work. You can't look at my work. What does it mean to be an artist and not be able to share that work? You know, what does it mean? What would it mean for you guys is if you couldn't share what you wanted to share? You know, how you perceive the world, and just fun things to play around with, you know, just fun ideas. I thought, you know, and conversely, there's Locke, who wants nothing more than to be able to write and have people see his work, and yet he feels that he doesn't have it. He feels that he's just not good at what he does, and hides it from people. Kind of in the same way, he feels instinctually that he has to hide it. Yeah, yeah. There's so many little fun things about being an artist, I think, that the average person doesn't understand. You know, people can paint paintings and write poetry, but then I think secretly inside each one of us we go, no, I don't want you to see that. I don't really want to share that. It takes a lot of courage to kind of show your mirror to someone, I think, and be confident that you're with the right intention trying to connect.
That's something we all can relate to. Me, I'm the resident musician, and so I think it's kind of funny, like you talking about like we being afraid of people seeing our craft. I've been playing guitar for, let's see, about at least 14, 15 years now. There's a significant amount of my friends that don't realize that I play guitar. And it's on one hand it's confounding, absolutely confounding, because music is such a significant part of me. If I'm not doing music or having some creative outlet, I feel a lot like Basil when he doesn't paint. I just turn I just turn into just a shell of a person. But at the same time, people not realizing that I am the creative type that I am, is something recently I'm realizing is kind of confounding me at the same time. So that's something I've been really dealing with, and feeling like I could totally uh totally feel for Basil.
Well, like what we were talking about before, music, just like any other art form, it's got to be done, just joy. It's just self-expression, and I think you're never really fully a part of it until you just are able to let go, and just do it, And I've learned that through music. I've played a lot of years. I felt very self-conscious in my young early days about playing, because I felt like I was being judged, or people were watching me, or I wasn't playing well enough, or felt a sense of competition with other drummers. For example, I'm a drummer, so you feel like, am I playing well enough? I feel like I'm being judged, blah, 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 blah. And all of those things, yeah, they have a place, but I think the most important thing is that no one will ever be able to do it. When you realize that nobody will ever be able to play like you play, and if you play with passion and enthusiasm, which I love that word, enthusiasm. It means infected with the God, enthos, that idea of being infected with your passion. Nobody can do it the way you do it. And if you just believe in that, and you're confident in yourself, and the way your sincere intention is to truly reach out and use that art to connect, that's what it's all about, in my opinion. I totally know where you're at. Music's crazy that way too. It's such an immediate connector for people. It's unlike a book. Where here's a book, you can read it over the next 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months or whatever, and then maybe at the end of it you might get that connection. Whereas in music, you can touch somebody in the first 4 bars usually.
Right.
It's a big difference.
I'm completely with you there.
It's looking like it's getting very busy in here, and I probably should go. I think they're looking at me going, "Can we have your table?"
Oh dear.
But I do need to take my family back to Idaho, back south. I've got to drive that terrible drive down through, although it's a beautiful drive this time of year, but in the wintertime, oof, terrible.
The way you describe the treachery of driving through Idaho in the book, I've gotten a pretty good visual of how serious it could be.
You guys are New York State, right?
I'm New York, Charles, and everybody else is Connecticut.
Okay, but you still get some pretty decent snow up that area, right?
Yep.
Boy, do I.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I had a friend of mine living in New York and Connecticut for a while, and he would talk about some of the crazy snowstorms you guys would get up there.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I just wanted to talk about one small detail that I continually saw as a common theme in the story. Well, not not so much a theme, but like the thing that I kept constantly seeing in the book, the Macallan.
I'll have a Macallan, please. Thank you, sir. No, the Macallan it's a Scotch I've sort of fallen in love with, and I just kind of thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to play around with it, and just keep putting it in there. Who knows? Maybe someday somebody at Macallan will read my book and give me an endorsement on Macallan. So every time I go out to do a reading or I have a booth or something, they just have a bottle of Macallan there for me. We'll just call that some sort of a manifestation.
I'd be all for it and would support you on that.
Oh, that was good. That's great. Well, and hopefully, if ever we want to try, I'm sure we'll all one day meet up again. We'll have some Macallan together.
Actually, also wanted to bring that up. You offered Charles and I a glass of Macallan at Book Expo America. So I think that was another thing that kind of stuck out in my head when I kept seeing Macallan strewn throughout the book.
Again, we're going for the endorsement full.
Yes.
Not really, but you know.
Not really, but kind of, sort of, totally. Excellent, man. Like I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I loved your narrative style in it. The way you described, like, even the biggest down to the smallest details. It was just like I felt myself so immersed in the book throughout the entire read, and all the twists and turns and the trap that I fell right into, and I'm sure you're hoping everybody else will. It was like I had like by the time the book was done, like I had the excitement sweats.
Well, I'm thank you so much, and I am truly thrilled that you enjoyed it. I mean that means more to me than anything else. Being able to reach out and again just connect and share stories. I mean what more could you possibly want? So thank you so much.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. The pleasure's all mine.
Well, I think we will be nice and let you go so that you can slowly make your way back home, and so they can have their seat back. That's
So yeah, this is Priest Lake right there. I don't know if you can see the marina out there.
Yep.
Oh, I can see it. Oh man, that is gorgeous. Oh my goodness.
It is really beautiful. And I'm so pleased to be up here. We're up here just doing a little camping with my family and working on little pieces for the new book and it was just awesome being able to talk to you guys up here. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's really cool. Like on location.
On location, at the location. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for having me, and I hope to get some notes from you soon, and let's keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
For
We'll
sure, for sure.
be in touch.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Take care and safe travels.
All right, take care.
Oh, that was all sorts of awesome.
It's fun to be able to talk about books that we've read with the authors, especially when the books are that entertaining.
Eventually, I'll read one of these books.
I could probably lend you my copy. Maybe.
I already have a copy of a book you lent me just sitting right here.
True. And Justin has a whole bag with books from me. I don't think he started on them yet, though. Someone should probably ping him to let him know that he can come back.
Let's see.
And with that, the warning is no longer in effect.
The spoiler portion of this podcast is complete.
Should have kept track of when we started that so I could have put in the YouTube notes like skip parts from time to time if you don't want the spoilers.
Yeah, we can figure it out in post.
Yeah. And I'm kind of tempted to put the spoiler part in the audio version at the end so people can like trail off after that if they really want to, rather than trying to skip ahead in between.
Hmm.
Seeing as we had such an in-depth interview, I didn't have any talky points or highlights for this episode, so if there's anything that people would like to bring up or just bring up, by all means, but I have nothing.
Bear with me a moment.
Okay.
Did anyone ping Justin?
I'm not on Skype. My internet will get very cranky if I do.
I'm not connected with Justin on Skype, so I can't.
All right.
Alright, there she is. Okay.
Well, the only thing that I can highlight to kind of bias sometime is I figured out how to do bookmarks. I've actually tested out the laminating machine and paper cutter thingy. So, oh, that's bright. That's very bright. Come on, away from the light. It's the little recommended reading ninja.
Ooh, sweet.
Oh, there we go. Ta-da!
Got it. Very nice. Very nice.
And I have another 15 or so designs because I went a little crazy, as I'm wont to do. So we shall have all sorts of bookmarks at Kineticon on top of everything else. Because we don't have enough inventory already.
Of course not. All right. I believe I am ready.
For?
I have a YouTube channel highlight.
Ooh. The floor is yours.
All right. Let me get the screen share set up. Screen share. That one? Or do I want a full screen? Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. My YouTube channel pick for this week is Robin Schneider. She is a young adult novel author and internet trend and pop culture geek. She's released 2 books, Severed Heads, Broken Hearts, and The Beginning of Everything. And she posts fairly regularly. I think like every week or every other week or so, with various Q&As, top 10 lists, weird facts videos. She even does beauty tips and various must-haves. She originally hit my radar because of her weird facts and her top 10 lists. My favorite was her top 10 awesome German words and her top 10 weird facts about William Shakespeare. They're incredibly entertaining, and if you're up for a good laugh, I suggest you check them out. Oh yeah, also she has a video with tips for tackling NaNoWriMo. It's something I thought some of you guys might be interested in.
I will have to check that out.
So look up Robin Schneider, Robin with a Y. Unfortunately, her YouTube channel link is all scribbly-gook, so let's search for Robin Schneider. I'd like to check out one of her books one of these days, too.
I'll add it to the list.
All right, so Robin Schneider, my YouTube pick of the week. Check it out. And back to me.
I think Justin might be fed up with us. He doesn't want to come back. He's just done with the whole show.
Well, I messaged him and said the spoilers were over. Very directly, I simply said, spoilers over. So we'll just see what happens.
In the meantime, let's see. We still have 3 whole segments, and we've already run an hour and a half, so let's keep on rolling.
All right.
I say as I realize that I didn't properly put the link for the Muse food in my show notes, because why would I do that? That would be silly. So I awkwardly try and set things up on the fly, as I tend to do.
No probalo.
And I remember this time that it only screen shares with stuff in the same window. So I can't have it scattered all across the Mac. There we go. All right, it's time for the Muse Food segment, because we need to keep rolling. So, time for writing prompts. Each week we provide multiple styles of writing prompts because every writer is different, and some muses prefer one-liners, some prefer just the conceptual one-worders, and for the more visual people, we have a combination of Rory's story cubes.
We actually had a moment the other day when we were in Books A Million, and we saw a couple packages of Rory's story cubes for sale.
Just the standard set or the expansions?
It was 2 of the expansion sets. I forget what they were, though.
Probably the Voyages and Actions, I think they are.
I don't even remember.
I think the last I saw, they only had the 2 expansions out in physical form. And I actually haven't checked the app form in a little while, so I don't know if they finally gave us more. But it would be nice, because they're a lot of fun. And hey, conveniently, we have 3 people on the show right now, and we have 3 parts. So,
Look at that.
claim what you want.
I'll take the one-liners.
All right.
I'll take the cubes.
All right. I will take the words, but only the single ones.
All right. Your one-line writing prompts for this week are as follows. Let's go to the county fair. They're dropping like unfed zombies over here. Put your left palm over the hole and let's get on with this already. There isn't enough coffee in this pot. Isn't it about time we sold some of these books? It smells like melting souls in here. Just follow the one in the cape and all will be okay. I will smash your router with a hammer if you don't get off the internet right this instant. How do you turn this thing on? And finally, I can't believe I didn't think of that. Your one-liners for this week.
Theoretically, some of those are actually inspired by real-life stuff this week, but I can't remember which ones.
I feel like the router sentence, the router one-liner sounds like something akin to the various fun you've had with your router over the last several years.
This is the router 3.0 as well. Router 1.0 finally died outright, and the second one was just sad. This one is even sadder, though.
Oh.
I think my mistake was getting the cable modem and router package in one physical box. I don't think it can multitask very well. I think I'm going to actually have to get individual boxes for each, because this thing is pretty spazzy.
I can point you to a very good, decently priced router. We can talk about that after the show.
Fair enough. In the meantime, one-word writing prompts. This week's one-worders are finale, shadow, jester, nocturnal, shot, filler, swimming, guest, endure, and grin. Make of those what you will.
All right. So that brings us to this week's Rory's Story Cubes, as interpreted by me. Let's see. We have here what appears to be a small child with quite the demonic-looking shadow behind him or her. Didn't remember reading that version of Peter Pan. We have a small bridge going over a stream. We have a man with all his might trying to push over a small wall. It looks like he's starting to succeed. We have a treasure map. We have a man very eagerly eating something. I'm not sure what. A giant cookie, perhaps. We have a person who is either laughing or suffering from seizures, perhaps. There are weird vibration lines around his head, so I'm not sure. But he looks happy. We have a circus tent. We have a crab. And we have balance scales, where the left side is clearly heavier than the right. And those are the story cubes for this week.
I don't know why, but the last two make me think of the zodiac, Cancer and Libra.
Probably because those are the symbols for Cancer and Libra.
Well, fine, just ruin my bad joke, why won't you? I don't even know where I was going with that anyway, so it doesn't matter.
NVM, moving on.
Yeah. As always, you don't have to utilize all of these writing prompts, or even any of them, really. They're meant more just kind of as a Kickstarter for your muse, so you can get your current story rolling again, or start an entirely new one, if you happen to have the time and motivation. And if you happen to write a short story or flash fiction piece based off of any of these writing prompts, we would love to read it. as you can tell, we love reading stories and then discussing them. So you can email us a copy of the piece or the URL where we can check it out via our email, which is wordninja@fcwriters.com. And off of screen share. Let's see. The next segment is everyone's favorite, goals and aspirations. How did everyone's various creative endeavors go last week? That well, huh?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go first then, because mine isn't too bad. Let's see, edit together the next Not Suitable for Word Ninjas podcast. I did that, and ironically, when CJ was last sharing, I noticed that he had recently downloaded it.
Yeah, I still have to listen to it. I'll be doing that later this evening.
Work on Kineticon panel prep. I did some of that. I got a couple segments of the panel written down. Record more gameplay. Did not. But I didn't really have any gameplay to record, so that didn't happen. Write something. Yes. Not much, but every little bit counts. Cosplay preparations. I have goggles now. Actually, I have them right here. As I make a ton of noise. Goggles!
Very nice.
Whee!
So I now have my first set of steampunk goggles.
Snazzy.
How do they fare considering you have glasses?
Well, they're a bit too tight as it is. I gotta loosen them up a bit. But they're going to be going around the brim of my hat anyway. So.
Fair point.
But if I take my glasses off and put them on, not only can I not see anything, I cannot see anything in a shade of brown.
Oh my. That sounds most inconvenient.
I'm back from the spoiler zone.
Hooray.
Apparently, Skype doesn't make a noise when Will texts me on Skype. So,
Depends on what your settings are.
if CJ was on Skype, I had asked him to test the Skype functionality, and he never responded. So, obviously, he wasn't looking at Skype.
I'm not on Skype at the moment because my internet is spazzy.
That would be why. So, where are we at? Because I'm late by 15 minutes, I believe.
Give or take. We rolled through the writing prompts and we just dove into the aspirations and goals and whatnot.
But yeah, those were my aspirations for last week. I got goggles.
Yay, goggles.
Yay.
Well, I'll run quickly through my aspirations for last week. Let's see. Decide facing my reality voice. I think I've got that covered now. Wait, I might have already went through some of this. This might just be a copy-paste from last time. Finally, website logo design for Facing My Reality. Still waiting on the designer to get back to me on that. Also need to send Kit some posts to review. I am continuing to read the current book list. And testing out NVIDIA Shadowplay. I don't have a graphics card that supports it, so that test became worthless.
Yeah, we discovered that with Calvin, that there is a actual certain power graphics board you are required to have, which...
Now, I am in the market for a new graphics card, so... And then talked to Will about NSFW panel. I talked to him about talking about it, but I don't think we ever actually did.
Close enough.
And goals for next week, I don't have any. Hooray. Make all the buttons for CJ.
And then I can print out all the other buttons.
Wait, what now?
And how about the Calvin?
All right. Let's see. What were my goals and aspirations from last week? Uh, finish reading Invasion of Heaven. Success. Design and send out the banner design. It's been ordered and it should be ready on Tuesday.
Nice.
Let's see. I'm still deciding on whether or not I want to buy this small tripod. I said, let's see how I feel after payday, which is this week. And consider doing something creative for myself, maybe, perhaps, why not? I actually came up with a little guitar song idea. I'm trying to tinker around with it and see where it goes.
Cool.
So then I take it that the idea you came up with at work, what was it, yesterday or the day before, you did not forget by the time you got home?
I still remembered it by the time I got home. So
Hooray!
I heard it's an exact copy of the guitar solo in November Rain by Guns N' Roses. Can you confirm or deny that?
it's in a minor key now.
Ah,
So that was last week. This week, I can delete that because I sent out the banner design already. Yay. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to start the new book on my reading list. I'm going to start that on Tuesday because that's July. Figured good stuff. 1st of July is a good time to start a new book. I'm still going to decide whether or not I want this small tripod. I'm going to continue working on my music idea because I think I got something good here, maybe, perhaps. And finally, do something fun for my birthday, which I'm actually going to do because it just so happens that today is my birthday, and I've been invited out for sushi tonight.
so you're
Nice.
saying
Some
that
friends.
this podcast is not fun, and that was not the fun thing you did for your birthday? Hmm?
What would you rather do? Podcast or sushi?
I don't know why you can't do both.
That's an easy answer, obviously.
Why
Sushi.
not both at the same time? We should be eating sushi right now.
That's a good point.
Because
As long
So
as
I did have
Justin's
sushi
dying.
last week.
the sushi that I'm going to be enjoying is at a restaurant far, far away. Well,
Oh.
not that far, but
If it's not delivered via conveyor belt, I'm not interested.
We'll be doing that at Kineticon.
Hmm.
yes, we are. It'll be good times.
I'm sure I will be horrified by the price scheme compared to the one that I went to in Taiwan, which apparently they're very popular there.
I'm sure you will be. But yeah, I officially turned 29 1 hour and 20 minutes ago.
The fact that you know that frightens and confuses me.
Welcome to the club.
Man, now I'm the
Yay.
youngest one again.
Well, the time was written on my birth certificate, so.
Wait, I think I'm the oldest one then, because Will had his birthday after mine, I think.
That was a couple weeks ago.
Correct.
So yeah, that's so yeah, those are my goals for this week.
10 days ago. Exactly 10 days.
Yep.
Calvin and I were born exactly 10 days apart.
And that's how I can remember your birthday so easily. It is 10 days before mine.
Alright. What the heck were my goals? My goals are the same as every week. They haven't really changed.
Reduced amount of awkward silence in the podcast.
Like that's ever gonna happen. Let's see. Last week, I actually declared all of the 2014 secret projects of Secret Secretness.
Oh God, I missed it.
Yep. You missed the grand reveal of non-melodramaticness. The 2014 projects update and upgrade the store. I'm actually going through the process of getting all the templates for all the Zazzle stuff because we have a store there. Surprise! We've had it for a while. It's just I want to size the images properly before I upload them so that they don't get cut off or sized very awkwardly. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing this week because I want to get some of the primary designs up there on some of the easy stuff like the mugs and books and stuff. But that's still going to be an ongoing process. But partnerships and affiliations have that's, as I put it, a roller coaster built by a blind space octopus. It's been an interesting week for all the various groups that we're in talks with to figure out interviews, partnerships, affiliations, events. Some good, some bad. I don't want to go into any of the details because a lot of them are not confirmed yet, so we'll see. And IP maintenance, I haven't really done much with that yet. I need to do a proper inventory of all of the various creative stuff that we've put together over the past several years so we can properly maintain them and organize them. Interviews and networking, ongoing.
I noticed in the show notes that there's a subset of bullets that have nothing in them, and I found that hilarious.
Under interviews and networking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just a blank bullet.
Surprise, we're not doing anything ever again. No. We have a half dozen or so interviews in the works. It's just confirming specific dates. And some of them are vague, like, we'll do this sometime in August. I'm trying to narrow those down a little bit. And networking is just perpetual. There's always people that come up on my radar like, we should talk to these people. And then actually talking to them and figuring stuff out. And then convention inventory. All of the buttons and bookmarks and books and booklets and other book type things. Next weekend I'm going to do a test run of the actual booth setup so I can make sure that we can actually fit everything on the table because we have a new setup this year and it would help to know everything can fit on the table. And probably should figure out the whole pricing structure of everything so we know what we're selling it all for and get the pitches and elevator speech down so we can pass that around to everyone for whoever's manning the booth at any given time and figuring out who is manning the booth at any given time because Kineticon, we're there for 3 days straight and a lot of us are doing various things throughout that weekend as well, so it's going to get a little crazy. Oh, yeah, those were my goals for this past week and the coming week, and the week after that, until Kineticon actually happens. Good lord, it's only like 2 weeks away.
And they gave us triangle tables. I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to stack stuff on that. And they're at a 30-degree angle, too, which makes it very complicated.
Oof.
Oh man, I ordered a 32-degree angle table.
Technically,
Or we're going to have to shim it.
not to cause more flailing, but it's less than 2 weeks away.
Shush
Because we
you.
got to be there on Thursday, so it's more like a week and a half away.
Shush you.
For me, it's actually still a week away. Speaking of which, I need to get the information of the hotel and the room and how I get a key and other things of that nature.
You don't. You're sleeping
Also-
on the roof.
Also, my phone is broken, so I'm not going to be able to call anyone until Tuesday.
Of this week, next
Yes,
week, or
this
after
week,
the
this
convention?
week. A couple days.
Okay. Man, you were attacked by a fox in the woods, you broke your phone, you broke your car.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't break my car. My car became broken. I want to make that distinction.
Almost sounds like we need a fundraiser just for Justin so that life stops being mean to him.
That would be nice. No, this is what the emergency fund is for. And thank God I had it.
Yeah, those do come in handy. Alright, speaking of events, Kineticon is a week and a half-ish away, give or take a few hours. They keep adding to the guest list. Like every other day, they're adding more people to the special guest. It's getting crazy. I don't know where they're gonna host them all.
They're going to be in a sim-style room with no doors or windows.
Oh dear,
Bathrooms.
Yep,
that's
just
gonna get messy.
mass urination. No beds, so they can't sleep.
Who sleeps at conventions anyway?
Good point.
And so far, they have not fiddled with the panel schedule at all since finally nailing it down. So I think we're pretty safe to say that mine is going to be on Friday at 1:30, and Will's is going to be Saturday at 11 p.m.
Possibly after sushi.
It's going to be yes, after sushi. Sushi comes first. Probably sushi and sake.
Probably.
I'm all right with both of those things.
And in August, we are going to be at Inconceivable in Northampton, Massachusetts, while our affiliate, Itty Bitty Sheep, is going to be at Connecticut Comic Con at the same weekend. And I actually have offline details about Inconceivable. I'm not going to spoiler it for listeners quite yet, so maybe next week. And
All right.
Calvin is going to attend New York Comic Con in October. Theoretically.
Hopefully I will not be going alone. Somebody come with me.
I would only be able to go Friday if I actually get a ticket, because Saturday is already sold out.
No. Oh.
Yeah, like the weekend passes are gone, the Saturday passes are gone.
Calvin's thinking, maybe I won't be going to New York Comic Con now.
And the system they have set up, I keep forgetting that I need to keep it open. So if I were to go, it would be Friday. But that's an offline discussion.
Okay.
And we are also going to Rhode Island Comic Con in November.
Woohoo!
That one's obviously in Rhode Island. And I should actually add that our affiliate is Itty Bitty Sheep is going to be there too.
Hooray!
Woohoo!
So I think everyone but Justin is going to be at that one. Unless he swaps places with someone and steals their identity.
Who says that I haven't already?
Well, it'll be a little early since the convention isn't until November.
Yeah, but I have to dry out the leather. So you gotta cold smoke it. Takes a
So
while.
that's what that other room in your place was for. No wonder.
That's what all the hooks were hanging from the ceiling for,
Okay. I was curious about that.
and all the box fans.
It puts the lotion on its skin, or else it hits the hose again.
I do have 4 garden hoses, so that should be enough.
Let's see. I had an idea for what this episode was going to be brought to you by, but I didn't write it down because that would have been smart. So I'm just going to be lazy and say this episode is brought to you by the host company Full Coverage Writers, because they are the umbrella corporation, except without the zombies, for everything and anything that we do.
I don't know, we're writers. Are you sure we're lacking in zombies?
We're not
I was
supposed to talk
drinking
to the
earlier.
public about that. They're not supposed to learn that quite yet. But yeah, fcwriters.com, you got all the previous episodes of Word Ninjas Live, both video and audio. We are working through the backlog to get all the audio episodes up as well, little by little. We got all of the book reviews up. We have various other shiny baubles, and we are working on upgrading the store, as mentioned previously, so definitely go check it out and see what there is to see. All sorts of entertainment.
There's even work going over here. You probably can't hear it, but in the other room, ninja cubes are being fabricated.
Oh my.
They reproduce like oh, what are they
Tribbles?
called? Yeah, tribbles.
Well, isn't the sheep one pretty fuzzy like a tribble?
Yeah, it's cottony fuzzy. Tribbles look like they're more Pomeranian fuzzy.
I really look forward to figuring out how we're going to stack those on the table and how people are going to slowly rearrange them into different piles and pyramids and whatnot over the weekend.
They're pretty cubish, so they're pretty stackable on their own.
I was going to staple them all together.
Surprise, you have to buy 15 of them at once.
We'll have that many by the time we get to Connecticut.
Oh dear. Well, on the plus side, Inconceivable is only basically a month after that, so if we don't sell out, at least we won't have to flail frantically to create too many more.
Mm.
Although it would be nice if we sold out, because, hey, it's popular then. Although Ed might disagree with such a statement.
He would probably be shocked, considering he just keeps saying they're so derpy.
It gives them charm.
That's what I keep saying. People like derpy.
We shall find out just how derpy and adorable they are at Kineticon. I'm sure many photos will be taken for posterity. Calvin, get on that.
Fine.
Okay.
The sewing machine actually sounds like crickets. It's very apt during our silences.
Well, those are actual crickets.
Oh. Somehow that makes it even better.
What is it with you and misidentifying cricket noises?
Hey, that sounded like a mechanical cricket.
I can assure you that it is a living cricket outside of my house somewhere, outside one of these windows. Actually, it sounds like it's outside the door over there.
Sounds like it's inside of your microphone.
Well, it's just listening to the show.
It's funny because I actually have the gain turned all the way down, and yet that cricket, it still insists on being picked up.
Damn you, frequency modulation.
Alright, considering we're already past the 2-hour mark,
And I'm about to pass out.
start wrapping things up by saying if we entertained you in any way, shape, or form, you can show your appreciation very easily by subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's very easy. You just click that subscribe button. You're familiar with YouTube. You know how it goes. You can watch all of our previous episodes, excepting 2 that the internet just ate and refused to give up. So 46 out of 48 episodes are up there for your viewing pleasure, including we also have all of our book reviews. We have a couple standalone author interviews, an actual workshop or 2, I believe, as well, and various other creative shenanigans that we get up to. So subscribe, check it out, see what we're up to. And we're also on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. The details for those coming up. And as always, if follow us and converse with us. We like to talk to our listeners and watchers. We like dialogue. As fun as just talking out into the void is, it's a little more entertaining when the void talks back. That sounded less creepy in my head.
You've been having any conversations with Cthulhu again?
Only every other day. Alright, I think that's going to wrap things up for this surprisingly long episode for us. But first, who are we crazy people, and where can people find us on the internet? I'm just going to roll down the line because it's convenient for me and go with Calvin.
Okay. You can find all the list of all the websites and fancy stuff that I do at calvin.cwillia.ms as my website. You can also find me doing all sorts of fun stuff at the music website Riffraff. Find that at riffraff.net, riffraf.net. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ccwii. You can find me on Tumblr, instacal.tumblr.com, and you can find me on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/cdubny. There you have it.
And it's Justin's turn.
So normally I would be pimping my facingmyreality.com site, but it's been kind of going under an overhaul. So I'm not going to pimp it any more than I have just by saying its very name. However, what I will pimp is the Facing My Reality Twitter name, getting back into that and twittering more, fun little tips for productivity and time management and other little updates about my life, little like a mini blog, while the actual blog is going under an overhaul.
All right. And Will.
Can you go over and underhaul?
I don't have an answer.
Sometimes the English language fascinates me, and it makes me ask the stupidest questions.
I guess I should have said through an overhaul. Was that better?
I suppose. Did you go around an overhaul?
It feels like I'm doing that emotionally.
Alright, so you can find me mostly. I'm on my personal Tumblr page at darkhom.tumblr.com. It's darkhom.tumblr.com. I post a lot of not safe for work stuff, whatever I find that the mood strikes me. It's personal blog, so it's just whatever the hell I think like putting up there. I also have a writing Tumblr page at my roommate's astripper.tumblr.com where I post the chapters of Roommate as I eventually write them, as well as other behind-the-scenes stuff, fan art, and stuff like that. My Sofuri page is darkhom.sofuri.com. You can also find the chapters of My Roommate's a Stripper over there. It is not safe for work, obviously. But you need an account to view the not safe for work stuff. So if you go there without an account, you'll get safe for work stuff, mostly, depending on how it's been tagged. And my Twitter, which I never use, is at Will Granville.
All right. As for myself, you can check out my zombified Twitter account, silver_wolf85. I'm actually averaging about one post a week now. I don't think it's going to get much more than that. You can usually track me down as Makarov on the Fairy Tale Podcast Monday nights via their YouTube channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. My personal Tumblr is fancypantswolf.tumblr.com. That is NSFW-ish. And for all things full coverage writers, as we mentioned previously, the website is fcwriters.com. That hosts everything that we do in various forms. And our YouTube channel, which has all of our videos on it, the convenient URL would be wnja.us/YouTube. Or you can just go to YouTube, search Full Coverage Writers, or Word Ninjas Live will pop up. Our literary Twitter handle is at FCWordNinja. Our literary Tumblr is fcwordninja.tumblr.com. Facebook, you can track us down, facebook.com/fullcoveragewriters. And for anything and everything else, you can just email us via wordninja@fcwriters.com. And that is going to wrap up episode 48 of Word Ninjas Live. That was a fun episode.
Yes, it
And
was.
to the best of my knowledge, we do not currently have a guest queued up for next week's episode, so that one might be a little more low-key. But hey, you never know. There's still a lot of interviews in the works, so we might surprise you.
It's probably better that next week is kind of quiet because the week after that will be episode 50 live, possibly maybe at Kineticon. Possibly maybe. If we can figure it out.
I have a feeling episode 50 is going to be like episode 50, part 1 of 30.
Get your editing tools ready.
Well, I have no other choice. I'm the one with all the AV equipment. And you guys are going to help me. You have no choice.
I'm actually being
You too,
intrigued to
Justin.
help because I want to learn about all of the stuffs.
But I'm reality man, not do the actual things, man. I just criticize everyone else and say why they're wrong. I don't know.
I'm changing your title to criticism man then.
No, that sounds so much worse.
And on that note, we will see you all next week. Have a good week, all.
Bye.